Salt. You use it every single day. You have no idea what you're actually buying. One pink salt has been sued for lying about where it comes from. One cost $100 for a jar the size of your fist. One was thrown away as garbage for centuries until French chefs decided it was worth more than gold. And the salt sitting in your kitchen right now quietly fixed a national health crisis your grandfather never knew existed. This is Every Salt Explained. We start with the one in your hand and end somewhere you've never heard of. Picture a kitchen counter. Morton, blue round container. That little girl with the umbrella. You've seen it your entire life. Table salt. Table salt. The one already on your table. Mined from underground or pulled from the sea, then stripped down to almost pure sodium chloride. Here's what changed everything. In 1924, Morton Salt started adding iodine.
Before that, up to 70% of school children in parts of Michigan had goiter, a condition where your thyroid swells because it can't get the iodine it needs. During World War I draft exams, more than 30% of local recruits were disqualified because their necks were too swollen to button a uniform. Morton fixed that with one ingredient. Within a decade, goiter rates in Michigan dropped by 74 to 90%. No law required it, the company did it voluntarily. They also added anti-caking agents so it won't clump in humid weather. The crystals are tiny and uniform on purpose. They dissolve fast and hit you with clean saltiness immediately. You've been using it your whole life and never thought about it twice. But step up one shelf and the rules get much less predictable. Kosher salt. Kosher salt. Named after the Jewish koshering process where meat gets salted to draw out blood. Those big, flat, irregular flakes are exactly why it works. More surface area means faster moisture absorption.
Here's the part that trips up every home cook. Kosher salt is not standardized. A tablespoon of diamond crystal and a tablespoon of Morton kosher hold very different amounts of actual salt. Same spoon, different result. You follow a recipe written for the wrong brand and your dish goes from perfect to inedible. And you didn't change a single thing. Diamond crystal is lighter and flakier. Morton is denser. Their difference by volume can be almost 2 to 1. Chefs who know this are very specific about which brand they mean. Chefs who don't, and recipes written without specifying, are the reason your brisket came out wrong last Thanksgiving. It's still a factory product. The next one barely gets touched at all. Himalayan pink salt. Himalayan pink salt. You've got it, your neighbor's got it, your gym sells it in a lamp. Here's the first lie. It's not from the Himalayas. It comes from the Kura salt mine in Pakistan's Salt Range, a set of hills well south of the actual Himalayan mountains. The name was chosen because Pakistani salt doesn't sell $30 grinders at Whole Foods. It worked so well that Morton got hit with a class action lawsuit in 2021 specifically for labeling its version as Himalayan while knowing where it actually came from. Here's the second lie, the health benefits. The pink color is iron, basically rust trapped in the crystal. The mineral content everyone talks about is so small, your body processes zero benefit from it. This salt is 96 to 99% plain sodium chloride, identical to the Morton in your cabinet. The mine has an entire mosque built from glowing salt bricks inside it. Workers earn around $50 a month. The salt they dig sells for 20 times the price of regular table salt in Western stores. But at least Himalayan salt is actually from nature. The next one is even more expensive, and it was garbage for 2,000 years. Fleur de sel. Fleur de sel. French for flower of salt. The most famous finishing salt on Earth, and for most of history, workers scraped it off the water and threw it in the trash. It forms as a thin crust on top of salt marshes in Gironde, Brittany, only on dry, sunny days with a specific east wind. One pond gives about 2 pounds per day. Somebody has to skim it by hand with a flat wooden rake before it sinks and turns into cheaper salt underneath. For centuries, that was the whole point. Get rid of it so the real harvest could form. Then French chefs in the 20th century decided this garbage layer was actually the finest salt in the world. Now it costs up to $30 a pound in the US. Sprinkle it on a steak right before serving. Flaky, soft, gently salty, nothing sharp. You'll understand in one bite why it took 2,000 years to figure out. But the salt sitting directly underneath it tells a completely different story. Sel gris. Sel gris. Celtic gray salt. The coarse, damp, heavy stuff that sinks to the bottom of those same French marshes, and the one most people have never heard of. That gray color isn't dirt. It's mineral-rich clay from the marsh floor. And that clay is exactly what gives this salt a deep, almost briny flavor that fleur de sel doesn't have. Same water source, same region. Fraction of the price. People have harvested it by hand here for over 2,000 years, without changing the method once. It never fully dries out, stays naturally damp in your fingers. That moisture and mineral depth make it a real cooking salt. Pasta water, brining meat, roasting vegetables. French chefs reach for sel gris to cook and save fleur de sel for the plate. You can buy both for less than the price of that pink Himalayan grinder you already have at home. But the next salt comes from England, and it's about texture, not taste. Maldon. Maldon. The salt on the counter of every serious kitchen in America, Britain, and about 55 other countries. It comes from a small town in Essex, England, where seawater gets boiled in open steel pans until it forms soft, hollow pyramids. Not flat flakes, not grains. Pyramids. They crumble between your fingers and shatter on your tongue instead of just dissolving. That crunch is the whole product. One family, the Osbornes, has run this company since 1882. 4 generations, same method. In 2012, Queen Elizabeth visited the salt works and granted them a royal warrant, official purveyors of salt to the British royal household. In 2024, King Charles renewed it. Salt production on this exact spot goes back almost 1,000 years. The 1086 Doomsday Survey recorded dozens of salt operations here. Picture finishing a steak. You could reach for the pink salt grinder, or you could reach for Maldon and actually taste the difference. But the next salt smells like a hard-boiled egg, on purpose. Kala Namak. Kala Namak, Indian black salt. Open the jar and you'll swear someone cracked a hard-boiled egg right next to you. That smell is sulfur, hydrogen sulfide, the same compound behind cooked egg yolks and hot springs. The salt starts as regular Himalayan pink salt, gets packed into ceramic jars with charcoal and herbal seeds, then fired at high temperatures. The chemical reaction embeds sulfur compounds into the crystal. You can't wash it out, it's built in. Despite the name, it's not actually black. Whole chunks are dark purple-brown. Grind it and it turns pinkish gray. Here's the reason vegan chefs obsess over it. A pinch of Kala Namak turns plain tofu scramble into something that genuinely tastes like eggs. Same sulfur chemistry, completely different source. It's everywhere in Indian street food and chaat masala. Next up, the rarest color in salt, and it's not pink. Persian blue salt. Persian blue salt, the rarest salt on this list and the only one that's naturally, genuinely blue. It comes from ancient rock deposits in Semnan province, northern Iran. Salt formed roughly 100 million years ago when inland seas dried up and got buried under mountains. The blue isn't dye, it's sylvite, a potassium mineral trapped inside the crystal that bends light into a blue hue. The blue streaks run in veins through ordinary rock, 20 to 30 centimeters wide. Miners dig for them the same way you dig for gold. Only about 2 tons get harvested worldwide per year. That's it. Most people will never see it in person, let alone taste it. The flavor hits bold and salty up front, then softens into something slightly tangy and almost lemony, a crunch that's nearly glassy. But the most expensive salt on this list isn't rare because of geology. It's expensive because of what they do to it. Bamboo salt. Bamboo salt, Korean, known as jukyeom. A small jar of the 9-roast version costs around $100 in the US. And once you hear how it's made, that price starts to make sense. Sea salt from Korea's west coast gets packed by hand into bamboo stalks, sealed with clay from the mountains, then roasted over pine wood fire. Then they do it again, and again, 9 times total. The final roast hits temperatures over 1,700 degrees Celsius and fuses the salt into a dense, hard chunk. 9 roasts turn it deep purple. Each firing pulls minerals out of the bamboo and clay and burns off impurities. For centuries, Koreans treated it as medicine, not seasoning. Used in toothpaste, taken like a supplement, prescribed by herbalists. A doctor of traditional Korean medicine published the full modern methodology in 1981, and it's been a cult ingredient ever since. It tastes a little like sulfur with a sweet, smoky depth underneath. A few grains go a very long way. We've got 2 more, and both of them involve fire. Murray River salt. Murray River salt. Australia's pink flake, and the only salt on this list that was invented to solve an environmental disaster. Salty groundwater had been seeping into the Murray-Darling Basin in southeastern Australia for decades, poisoning farmland and threatening the river system that supplies 60% of Adelaide's drinking water. The solution? Pump that brine to the surface and evaporate it. What came out was a soft, pale pink flake salt. The pink comes not from iron, but from keratin-producing algae living in the ancient brine. The company now intercepts up to 200 tons of salt per day that would otherwise flow into the river. A pollution problem became a gourmet product sold in dozens of countries. The flakes are ultra-delicate. They dissolve almost on contact. Add them at the very last second before serving. On pale fish, fresh vegetables, or soft cheese, they look as good as they taste. But fire beats algae every time. The last 2 salts on this list are all smoke. Alea Hawaiian red salt. Alea salt, Hawaiian red sea salt. The color looks like dried blood, and the history runs just as deep. It's sea salt mixed with red volcanic clay called alea, which loads the crystals with iron oxide. That clay is exactly why Hawaiians used this salt for centuries in purification ceremonies and spiritual rituals, not just cooking. In the 1800s, it was shipped to the Pacific Northwest specifically to cure salmon. You'll still find it in Kalua pig and traditional poke. Picture a Hawaiian feast, 1850. No refrigeration, no preservatives. This salt was doing the work your whole modern kitchen can't replicate. The flavor is earthy and mild, softer than regular sea salt. But look is everything here. Deep brick red crystals scattered over white fish or sliced tuna look unlike anything else on a plate.
1 salt left, and it smells like a campfire. Danish Viking smoked salt. Danish Viking smoked salt. The last one. and the one most people describe the same way after the first taste. Bacon. One man in Denmark made it his mission to revive a millennium-old Scandinavian tradition. Seawater gets evaporated, then the crystals sit over an open, smoky fire fed with juniper, cherry, elm, beech, and oak. The smoke soaks into the salt as it forms, not added after, built in during crystallization. Saveur magazine described the result in 2002 as simply tasting like a bonfire. Smoking and salting were the two main tools Northern Europeans used to survive winter for centuries. This salt is both at once. 3 grains on a steak, a pinch in a Bloody Mary. Finish roasted potatoes with it, and you'll understand why someone thought it was worth bringing back from 1,000 years ago. Now you know every salt. The one in your cabinet is still doing a job most people have completely forgotten about.